Because often what I find with the people on this journey, the people trying to improve themselves, people on the journey of bettering themselves, is that they do all these good habits. They do the things that make them better than they ever were. They think that they're better than other people. Of course, you might be ahead of them in terms of some things, but doesn't mean that you don't need to be humble. Doesn't mean that you could be wrong. In my native language, there is a saying which literally translates to a half doctor kills a man. It means that if someone has half the knowledge, he will do worse than if he didn't even have a knowledge at all. If you don't have the humility to know what you don't know, what you end up doing is you make stupid decisions based off of the limited knowledge that you have. The wise man knows what he doesn't know. I've heard, I think, Alex Hormozy say that in the beginning of his fitness business, he would look at people who had worse forms. They were doing it wrong. Why can't they learn the right stuff? But later on, he realized that maybe one of them was right and the other was wrong, or maybe he was wrong. Then over time, he got multiple revelations of the same thing. After that, he realized if he had spoken out of his arrogance, of his ignorance, he would have been wrong. But he decided to stay humble. He decided to not take action on those half-knowledge hunches. You would gain much more from being humble than if you were not humble. But even if you didn't gain anything, I'd rather you should be humble. These arrogant, ignorant fucks that walk around, honestly, people hate them. I would say at a certain point in time, to a certain type of people, I was arrogant and ignorant too. Because I was so adamant on the fact that I was on the right path and they were not, and that I was desperately trying to ply open their eyes so that then they will see what I see, and then they will pursue the journey that I am pursuing. But this goal, this certain path that we all follow, some of you follow, I follow, it's not meant for everyone. If it was meant for everyone, then it wouldn't be so special, it wouldn't be so difficult, it wouldn't feel like you're doing something different. Because if it was meant for everyone, they'll be consciously choosing not to do it. Instead, they are not choosing anything. The whole thing that you mentioned to them, the idea of all of this, even when you explained it to them, it never got through their head. Because maybe they were incapable of thinking that, or maybe they just don't care enough. I've found in many situations that I've lived through for a long time, particularly in the past few months, I've noticed this thing coming up where I ask myself, do I care enough when I'm asked to do something, when I have to get something done? I ask that. And I realized often I don't. In the same way, some people don't mind living a normal life. Is it their fault? When you ask a question like that, you decide that there is an objective path that everyone has to follow, that only your side is correct. The problem with thinking that is, again, this arrogant self where if you believe that there is an objective path everyone has to follow, you want everyone else to follow that. So you become this cocky guy who's telling everyone what to do when you really are also just on the start of the journey. They're probably on their first part of the journey. We're all living life for the first time. So what it looks like is this. It looks the same way from the other side. Who is this guy with no results, with limited information telling me what to do? That is what you look like. I'm not saying it's a particularly bad thing to want people around you to be doing the right things. But it is the approach that you take. It is the way you behave. It is your mind patterns. And I've also caught myself having these non-humble thought patterns. I'm going to call them that. But thinking that you are ahead of people. I mean, ahead is a good, but like better or superior are the wrong words to use. So be awake, be conscious of the thoughts that you keep having. Understand that the journey that you're pursuing is not for the sake of that journey. If you think about self improvement and think that it's all about just getting better, you forget the fact that you're pursuing this journey probably for your future partner and your future children. When you keep that in mind, then you can't avoid the fact that you gotta be humble, you gotta not be arrogant. Because what happens is that you chose this journey because probably someone did wrong to you. Often I find a lot of people on self improvement are kind of broken and trying to recover. And normal people just live normal lives. It is very important that you don't inflict the same trauma upon the next generation. Whatever you got, you shouldn't put forward. I think I've made my point very clear. It's to remind you of being humble and why it is quite important. As messed up as it sounds, you don't want to do it. You don't want to change. You don't want to do the hard things. You don't want to be the one being the change. What you actually want deep inside is someone to say it's okay, someone to comfort you, someone to say, son, you're doing good enough. Look at you, you're better than a lot of people. You're doing so much. It is scary, honestly. When I think about it, it is scary. They just want to not have the regret of not doing it. Let me share an experience of mine. If you don't know already, I play football, not the American one. I play as a finisher, or you could call a striker. What I basically do is someone will supply the ball and I have to score it. And in my worst seasons where I just couldn't do it, I just couldn't finish the ball, I was content with trying. I was telling myself, I'm doing everything I can. What else can I do? Right? I'm trying to finish. I'm swinging my leg, but the ball's not going in. Right? So it took some time for me to realize that the trap that is, I'm gonna call it, I'm trying. The trying trap. People get stuck there often. People want to tell themselves, want to comfort themselves that I'm trying. So it is good enough. It is good. I'm not gonna say it's good enough, but like deep inside, you tell yourself it's not about the success. I mean, even if you don't succeed, at least you tried. Oh, come on, man. Put this into perspective. Okay, put this into perspective. When you do the things that you should do and they're not going the way you want to, which mindset would help you? Thinking that, okay, I'm trying, or the one where you look at yourself and ask, am I actually doing the right thing? Am I doing it the right way? Am I giving my 100%? Because now when I look back, I was not giving my 100%. Was I fully in the training? Was I fully in my mind when I was training? I don't think I was. I wanted to just tell myself, look at me. I'm still showing up every single day. I'm still showing up to training. I'm doing everything I can, right? No, I was not. I would tell my friends that I'm not feeling it, okay? When I was struggling with YouTube, when I was struggling with consistency on YouTube, I would tell people about that and they tell me, bro, you're doing enough, okay? You're far ahead of a lot of people. But that's not what you want to hear. Because the mindset that will help you is to micromanage, to look at the single aspects and think, okay, how can I improve one aspect today so that maybe that one aspect will bring about the change. If you just think to yourself, I'm doing enough, how long will it take you to get out of that place, get out of that stagnation? I'm going to say it again. You're trying to find comfort by telling yourself that, hey, look, I'm trying. I'm at least trying, right? That right there, that is a little bit of self-delusion, and you would want to break out of it. So what was I actually supposed to think? I was supposed to think it is my responsibility and that I need to work on it myself. And I've already made a video about accountability. You can see that on the channel. And why do you have to take the responsibility? Because dad is not coming to save you anymore. You've probably lived all your life under someone who's going to provide, someone who's going to swoop in at the last moment. You might have watched in the movies where everything's going south for the protagonist of the movie and something extremely random happens and it just flips the script, it flips it, and now the protagonist is in the advantage. You're waiting for something like that to happen. You think that if you still just keep on doing those habits, if you still just keep on reading books by MJ DeMarco, overnight something random will happen which will mean that, oh my god, in the next year I'll make $1 million just because something random. That's never going to happen. That's why I'm telling you, take that accountability yourself. And no one is coming there. No, your friend's not going to get rich and tell you, okay, here's $10,000 so that you can start a business. That's not going to happen. Come on, get realistic. Take responsibility. Take accountability of the things that you did. Where you are right now is because of the things that you did for the past 6 months, probably. And what you do in the next 6 months will decide where you are for the next 2 years, for sure. I'm telling you, the next week will decide your next whole month. Think about it like that. Today will decide this week. Now, if you could sculpt today in a way that it would make the whole week into a completely different scenario. You're probably watching this on a Sunday, so you have the next whole week left. Okay, plan out your Monday so good that the whole week is set properly. That's what I want you to think. Take accountability. Take responsibility of your situation. Because you yourself brought yourself here. Okay? I didn't do it. You just saw me. You probably just met. This is probably the first or second video you're watching of me. You did it, not your parents. Okay? Maybe your parents forced you to go into college, but there's a lot of time still. There is a lot of things you can do. I go to college too. I mean, I just came back from classes. I'm recording these videos for you. Do I love college? Of course not. Do I have to get through it? Yeah, because I made a promise to my parents that I gotta complete this, and I'm gonna do it. But that's not what I'm gonna bet on. I'm just not gonna complete my degree and go into some 9-to-5 job, or maybe I will go into research physics because I like physics, but maybe not. But right now I'm completing college for my parents. I'm gonna do it, but doesn't mean that I'll ignore my responsibilities, which is this. The problem that I find with most people is that why you're not understanding that it is all in your control, why you're not understanding that you have the freedom, is that once you understand that everything you do is in your control and that you don't have to listen to anyone that you don't want to listen to, what happens? You get the freedom. What's wrong with freedom? If you got the freedom, you got to make the decisions for yourself. What happens when you make the decisions for yourself? When it goes wrong, you have to take the responsibility again. And you've never learned to do that. And also, you've probably been conditioned since your childhood that whenever decision that you made goes wrong, you were punished for it. You were condemned for it. You were not allowed to make those mistakes. So what happens now when you're put in a situation where you have to make the decision for yourself? You get scared. You're afraid of the freedom of the choice. If someone chose things for you, you wouldn't be worried because you wouldn't worry about the things that you didn't choose. Currently what's bothering you is having to choose. Is choosing to do something different with your life. Me choosing not to follow the conventional path of completing college, getting a 9-to-5 job and I don't know, retire and stuff. I didn't really look into that stuff. But the thing is, when I decide not to do that, then I'm bothered with the freedom. Freedom, after a certain point, is botherance, okay? People don't understand this. The rules that you put in place, the principle that you put in place will confine you, and that confinement is good for you. It's comfortable for you. You know why? Because total freedom will be utter chaos, and you can't really manage that freedom because you're afraid of it. Humans just can't do it. It's just getting darker and darker, and I think it's about rain, basically. What I'm trying to tell you is that The freedom is scaring you because you're afraid of taking responsibility. Why? Because you get to take the choice. You want someone else to choose for you. Why is that? Ask yourself, look into it, man. It's not too late. There is still a lot of time to look into yourself. Ask yourself that question. Why do you want someone else to choose for you? What are you afraid of so much? If you got the freedom to choose, be grateful you got something that other people don't. Overcome that fear and you can take control over your life. You wouldn't have to listen to other people and like the people who are uninformed about these things. You're keeping yourself safe from the things that could hurt you, keeping yourself safe from success. I want you to understand this very clearly. You may have just been following the same routine. You have been doing the same things for the past few days, months, or years. Because that's normal for you, regular for you, and being able to step out of it feels not possible. You know you want to change something about it, but you are not able to because you've built all these safety nets that would help contain you in this bubble that will help protect you from the things that could hurt you. You've built this throughout your whole life. If you understand the way the mind works, you will understand how this bubble was formed. It works just the way vaccines work. You inject dead or weakened microorganisms to your body, and your immune system fights it and builds a resistance towards that particular organism. The same way, when you're going through a hardship, when you're going through a struggle, when you're going through a pain, when you're a child or when you are growing up or even in your teenage years, your mind builds these networks to try and protect you the next time something like this happens. Or it tries to prevent the circumstance that would result in this happening. But over time, the need for it went away. I'm gonna call it the protector because the protector is protecting you from mental pain. Over time, the need for the protector went away, but the protector stayed with you because he didn't know what to do. Now, what he's doing is he doesn't have anything to do. Now, his sensitivity is very, very high. So, any kind of small discomfort triggers the protector. Now, what you have is trying to do something very negligible as far as you can say. You are unable to do that because that is prevented by the protector. That helps you stay in that routine that you've been keeping for a long time, and you tell yourself that it's fine, I'm getting there, I'm moving forward, while deep inside it's the protector telling you stay safe because I don't want you to get hurt. Some people cope by saying, I know what I'm doing, I'm just taking it slow. But if you have thought about it, if you have looked ahead, you would understand that failures are unavoidable in life. To get to a point where you want to get, you'll have to go through a certain number of failures, and that is for sure. If you're going to play it safe, you're going to just trigger those failures slower. So you'll go through failures slower and maybe not even get to the point of success because you don't have enough time. You never have enough time. And some people are not afraid of failing. They're not afraid of changing. They are able to do what they can and they know what they need to do to get to that point. But they are unable to transition into that person who is willing of success. That person who is capable of the success that they want, because they feel this disconnect from who they are and from who that person is, because they've lived their whole life thinking that they're not worthy of that success. That's again another circuit of the mind working against you, because maybe, just maybe, you've been fed all your life that you are not capable of what you are actually capable of. Maybe people discouraged you when you did things that you were proud of, but they didn't understand why you did what you did. And these circuits formed in your mind, and that is preventing you from transitioning into the person that can make the success that you want. And you know that it is possible, you know exactly what to do, but you're afraid of making that transition. And sometimes what happens is that you get a certain level of progress, you get to a certain point, and the whole thing just comes crashing down. And now you start self sabotaging because you don't know how to handle progress, because you've been afraid of it now, and what you're afraid of just came to you. The protectors going crazy. Now you start self sabotaging. You try to get to that point where you were comfortable in. Let's say you used to play a lot of video games, then you realize that it's bad for you and you stopped playing them. Then you come to a point where you're bored and lonely and listless and you don't know what to do. So then what you try to do is you try to go back to the place that you were comfortable in, the cozy con, the bubble that you were in. You try to get back to it, but you can't. So now you're just sitting there trying to build interest again, trying to get back again, but you can't. The key there is to try to find the balance and move forward. When you're in the mood for self sabotage, there is a lot of things that you can do that will just reset your progress. But instead, what you want to do is keep the progress and try to maintain. A common misunderstanding that people usually have is not understanding the difference between pleasure and happiness. I'm going to put satisfaction, fulfillment, contentment, and all those words along with happiness. And on the other side, we're going to have the word pleasure. The difference is time or term. So short term is what is pleasure, and satisfaction, fulfillment, contentment, happiness are long term. And if you've started out on your self improvement journey, most often the first lessons you'll get is about thinking long term. Thinking about short term pleasures means that you sacrifice your future self's progress and life for your current version, which is kind of selfish and destructive because you're not thinking about what could happen in the future. Thinking long term means that you prioritize your future use, happiness, health, contentment, mental health over your present self. It means that you're willing to sacrifice your present. It means you're ready to suffer, you're willing to tolerate pain, because it would mean that you will get a future gain. It will help your future self. And something you might have noticed with the way I put out in these conversations is that I always consider you, the present version, and the future version as two different people, and you're doing something for that person. And the beauty and the strength behind this kind of analogy of a different person and you're doing something for them is that you can think about that person thanking you back. And now, the situation that you're in right now, you can blame or you can thank your past version for this. 6 months ago, you made decisions that led you to the place that you are right now. And in that way, you can think of that person as someone who did the things and you want to be better than them. And the future version of you will look back at present you and think, okay, thank God he made the right decisions. Now I'm living a better life. Although you may feel like, okay, I was stupid, I was dumber back then, but the decisions that person made me feel happier, made me get a better life than I had. I'm responsible for my life. I have control over my life. So now I get to decide if I can create the circumstances which would create to me slipping up, me doing all the pleasure habits, me doing all the good habits or the bad habits. I get to decide, I get to control them, and I am responsible for anything that happens to me and also anything that I do. And the strength with that is that when you have full responsibility, you tend to create your environment in a way that it reinforces your beliefs, it supports whatever you believe in. So if I believe that sugar is bad for me, I would make sure that the foods that I make are less sugary, and I don't buy up things like sweets, chocolates, and milkshakes which would hinder my progress physically. Because I'm cutting right now, I make sure that I walk a lot. And also I keep my calories low so that I'm still in a cut. And whenever I feel that I need to get that, cheese sneak meal, what do you call it? Cheat meal. I tend to check the nutritional facts and everything to make sure that it still lies under my calorie limit, and that means that like I would have to sacrifice something else. The thing about having full control is that you tend to build these routines, build these structure in your life, and you'd rather be structured than have those comfort things. I'll tell you one thing. Let's say one day you're not feeling good, you want to stay up late and watch some movie series or something. I'll tell you, you'd have a better time going to sleep and the waking up at the same time that you do every day. If you wake up at the same time next day, I think I'm guaranteeing you that you will feel much better than if you stayed up late and watched some movie or something. There is rain now increasing, so like I'm apologizing for any like sound problems. All of this pleasure and all of these things are a way, an illusion for you to feel in control. When you feel like you need to have some comfort food, when you feel like you need to stay up late watching something, I'm not going to specify anything, it's often coming from a place where, okay, the disciplined me is taken away from the me that is wanting comforts and all those things. The thing is, the thing with having all this control and structure is that it is very comfortable at a certain point, and this comfort, unlike the one I mentioned in the previous video, is not bad inherently, because this comfort is you comfortable with a structure that you designed in a way that it is good for you. So this is a good comfort. Now you're content with life. You don't need change all the time to feel content. The thing I heard from a TikTok from Chris Williamson, I think, is that true happiness is often calm, peaceful, and very silent and like low. But always what is loud and a burst of happiness, of pleasure, is unsustainable and it's usually bad for you. It's what is pleasure. So I want you to understand the difference between pleasure and happiness, satisfaction, contentment, things like that. Often we chase the wrong thing, often we chase the pleasure, often we chase the wrong person for pleasure instead of looking for the long term happiness person. And often we make decisions, often we do things, playing games, hanging out, drinking, and stuff, instead of prioritizing things like mental health, reading, which would feel quiet and peaceful and like not much of a novel thing, but over time those adds up and have you a baseline of happiness. If you take anything from this video, it is to make the decisions thinking long term and prioritizing your future self. Think about that person as a child of your actions, someone who suffers the consequences of your actions. So you better make the right decisions for that person, because soon enough that person is going to be you. Say it along with me. I accept the consequences of my actions. Today I'm going to teach you about accountability, which is the most important thing in this age of fatherless West, single mothers, teen pregnancies, male suicides, student suicides, and all these societal problems which can be solved mostly from people just being more responsible. People taking up accountability for the things that they did. If we start doing that, most of these problems can be avoided. Now, the first thing I want you to understand is that just because you're accountable, just because you will own up on your mistakes, doesn't mean that you get to make them. The whole term accountability is about not doing the mistake in the first place. The idea of me being accountable means that I, before doing an action, should think, okay, I should accept the consequences of the action that I'm about to take. So, do I do this or not? That is how accountability should actually work, instead of just some murderer owning up to the murder he took. That is not the kind of accountability I'm talking about. The one I'm talking about is being responsible as a conscious person, as a being living in a community, living in society, living among people, as a father of your future children, as children of the world. There are responsibilities, there are conscious or subconscious, direct or indirect consequences to every action that you take. Last night after dinner, I felt like watching a movie because it's been quite a while, and as I sat there thinking about it, thinking about me going to sleep every single day at around 10:30 and waking up before sunrise for my prayers, I thought about this. Should I break that routine, watch a movie, have fun, and wake up sleep deprived because I would wake up before sunrise? Or after prayers, do I go back to sleep and wake up around 7 or 8? And today's a Saturday, it's a weekend, I could do anything I want, honestly. No one's here to control me. I don't live with my parents anymore, so there is no problems. I could deal with my life the same way. Why did I think of the consequences? Because last night I felt responsible for how I would feel this morning. That right there, that is accountability. Every action that you take today, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe a month from now, maybe 6 months later, you yourself will inevitably suffer the consequences of these actions. And over time, all these actions that you take will mold you into the person that you become. And eventually, this person that you become will be the father of your future children, will be the husband of your future wife. They will suffer if you don't take the right actions. They will suffer because of your irresponsibility, because of your lack of accountability. They will suffer. I'm kind of blurring the lines between accountability and responsibility, but the point that I'm trying to make through this video, I'm pretty sure is pretty clear. When you take actions, when you take decisions for something that matters to your current family as well, something that influences beyond your zone of influence, the people around you, your occupation, your house, whatever, whoever else might get affected, you also have to consider all the actions, all these people around you. They don't depend on you, but if they will suffer the consequences of your actions, you should be more responsible. In a previous video about not taking disrespect, I mentioned how there is this sense of collective responsibility, and you should not let someone disrespect you, because that then becomes a tolerable behavior, and someone else will get disrespected because you tolerated disrespect. The same way, you accepting mediocrity, you embracing mediocrity, you eating junk food, listening to music, staying up late, watching movies, whatever kind of stuff that you do, you think that will negatively impact you, indirectly affects people around you, because you now radiate, you now create, you now influence a new set of behaviors which someone else will look at you and think, okay, Shaz is doing it, so maybe it's fine. This may be a bit too philosophical or ahead of your scope when you take an action, because you've already just heard about being responsible for your future self, but you've never really considered the fact that your actions indirectly affect a lot of people. I've seen it firsthand in many situations and realized, oh my god, why haven't I thought about that? The way you react to things happening to you, the way you deal with things, and when people see that, it could be your friends, it could be people older than you, younger than you, people who depend on you, people who just know you, people who see you every day. It could be anyone. The point of this video is to not tell you that you're a role model to society. Every action that you take inevitably has a consequence. I'm not going to keep explaining to you how these responsibilities play out over and over and over again, because as I've told before, this is not about specifics. This channel will give you the underlying philosophy. Now I've just planted the thought in your head. Now I want you to water it and cultivate that thought. Sit and ponder over that thought. I accept the consequences of my actions. Have you thought if you've been structuring your life in a way that it is inherently difficult for you to navigate through the day? Have you put things in place so that it is kind of painful, and you know pain is good for you because pain leads to gain, right? But have you been focused on the pain part and not the gain part? Because it kind of feels to me that you're focusing on the fact that if it is difficult, that means you're making progress. It doesn't have to be that way. Just because your life is difficult right now doesn't mean that you're making progress. The thing that I'm trying to tell you about is that you don't always have to choose the hard way. That's what you're doing because you've been watching Red Pill content and you've been watching all these motivational David Goggins and kind of videos. And you forgot the fact that people who take the advantage are the people who work smart, not the ones who work hard. No matter how difficult your life may be, someone else will be doing the same exact things that you do in an easier way, in a smarter way, and they're finding it more fun while you're there calling it grind. You are there deluding yourself. You're telling yourself that it is difficult, but I am strong. That is weak masculinity right there. That shows your weakness because you need to feel like you're taking the harder approach and that you're grinding through all the pain and everything so that you can feel strong. That shows your weakness right there, man. I want you to think about this in the right way. What are you focused on? Like when I see people hop onto self-improvement and all these things, what I see is they get into this and they always focused on the wrong things. Because I remember I was in the NoFap communities and everything, and there people are not focused on the fact that why it is bad or this whole pursuit of living without it, but people are so focused on keeping their streak numbers. I don't get it. That's such an autistic game to play. I don't understand. These people would have their usernames will be like Jack day 7 of November. Like, what the hell, bro? Is that all you're about? Your name Jack? It's almost like your day of November is your last name. That is so like embarrassing. That's such a small-headed game to play. People always obsessing on the wrong things. If you remember, when people start reading books, I've made a video about reading books before, but when people start reading books, it's about. I tell someone I read books, then they'll be asking the question, how many books a week do you read, or how many books a month do you read? I'm like, bro, are you retarded? Because think about it. Think about what I'm saying. The reason I'm reading books is for knowledge. The question they should have asked me would be, is there a good book that you want to recommend to me? That makes a lot of sense. When you reduce these deep things into mere numbers, when you don't appreciate the value associated with behind those words, you start to focus on the wrong things. And when you focus on the wrong things, when you focused on making life difficult, you're just making life difficult. You're just making progress also difficult. The point of having the grind is when you want to do good things and it seems difficult. If I want to wake up at 5 and it feels difficult, then I should take the difficult approach. But just because something feels difficult doesn't mean it's good. You're taking it both ways when it's only one way. How I got the idea for this video was when I remembered that I had this friend that we were roommates and we were trying to do a business together and everything, which didn't really work out. But I used to remember telling him that the grip of the pull-up bar at the ground that we run at is bad. He's telling me it's just pain. It's good for you. I'm like, bro, that pain, how does it doesn't make it any better. Okay, it just hurts your skin. Okay, maybe you get harder skin, maybe you get these grippy things, but it doesn't affect my pull-ups positively. It actually makes it worse. So my grip would give up, and I'm not talking about grip strength, I'm talking about literally friction, okay, that would give up before I would be able to reach my potential of my lat and my lower back. When you focused on thinking that pain is necessary and it's only about the pain, then you're chasing the wrong things. And another thing people do is they put up all these restrictions, all these set of rules they probably got from some, some Instagram post or some billionaire's daily routine or some shit like that, and they put it onto their life. That guy who you're trying to follow has lived a much different life for years, and they're putting some rule on themselves. I remember telling you about the video "Rich People Don't Sleep 8 Hours a Day," and that video told me to wake up at 4 a.m. and I woke up at 4 a.m. and I had nothing to do. This is what people do. They set up these rules they find somewhere on the internet or somewhere, some successful guys routine, and they try to copy it. They put all these restrictions on their life, and they just make their life difficult without actually making any progress. I'm laughing because it's so stupid that they're thinking too one dimensionally, man. Think about it. Think about the actions, the habits, all those things that you make. There is an underlying go behind it. The reason most people don't make progress in self improvement is because they think about the activities. They don't think about the underlying philosophy. Because once you understand the philosophy, these videos become useless. If I understand the philosophy behind the self improvement, all these habits, everything, every kind of video that tells you take these actionable steps, things like that, it's all the same thing. It's all the same philosophy. It's preaching one thing, but it's giving you applications of the same thought behind it. And once you understand that philosophy, every video you watch, you think to yourself, yeah, it's just the same old rubbish that everyone else is talking about. And that is true because people don't think deep about this stuff. People, when they struggle with nofap, they look for nofap tips and tricks, 5 ways to not relapse. When they're struggling with sleep, they go tricks to fall asleep fast. No, bro. Probably if you fix your mental health before that, most of the problems you have would be gone. If you fixed your diet, most of the problems you had will be gone. If you exercise more regularly, most of that will be gone. If you stop attaching to wrong people. The thing is, all of these have this underlying thing, and all of this stems from the same thing, but you choose to treat the symptom. That's a very common tendency of people. Just treat the symptoms over and over again, but never address the source. So the symptom keeps coming back and they wonder why they're feeling on off up. It's getting pretty dark out there. I got to recording this video very late, but I wanted to make this video today itself because I had the idea and I wanted to tell you this message, and I feel like I was in a good mood. It's like I'm smiling and I'm joking around and stuff. So I'll give you the key takeaways from this video. Think deeply about simple things. Then you will understand the underlying factors and the underlying thing behind the thing that is on the surface level. That is tip number one for you. And another tip is that do always look for the smartest approach, look for the smartest man, look for the person who's doing it easy and enjoying it. If you find something difficult, look for the person who's enjoying it, look for someone who's doing it in a smarter way. You'll always find something, some conclusion to draw from it. Don't be stupid, man. Come on. Stop focusing on the wrong things. That would be tip number 3. Focus on the right things. Was that tip number 1? I don't know. The thing is, stop being so foolish, man. Think about it. Think for yourself. Remember back in the golden age of philosophy, and I don't remember, was it like Aristotle times? I don't know. The point is, at that time, the philosophers used to be fighters and the fighters used to be philosophers. Now, what happened to this world right now is the thinkers are fat pussies and the fighters are retarded. I'm telling you, we're living in a fucking society that's going downhill because of this reason. Our thinkers are weak and our fighters are stupid. If you become a formidable physical specimen with a mind of gold, there is no reason why you wouldn't just keep climbing to the top, because everyone seems to want to respect you. This is I think I've gone past the topics of this video, but I wanted you to understand this. Because this is the change that we want in society. Become noble, respectable human beings. When you walk into a room, you should be radiating aura. God, I hope I could really have you sit here in front of me and tell you things properly. I mean, honestly, we could be on video calls and be on videos, but that's what I'm trying to do. Eventually, you could text me on Instagram and I'll get back to you. It's the same, Shah's Unfiltered. That's what you gotta find. But what I'm trying to tell you is that it's not as complicated as you think. It doesn't have to be as difficult as you think. The reason you're not consistent is not because you lack discipline, because I know you've been cultivating discipline for a long time. You've been telling yourself that you need to do the things that are good for you, not just because they feel good, but because they're actually good for you. You've been telling yourself, you've been trying to learn how to do the hard things and not just the easy things, so that your future you will reap the benefits of it. But there is something wrong in the approach that you're taking, which is the reason why you don't get that discipline that you've been so desperately trying to get. You've been trying to build the habits around it, and you've been trying to read books of all these intelligent people, all these productive people, all the people who you felt were so disciplined in their craft that discipline by itself is what gave them the results that they got. You could look at Cristiano Ronaldo, someone who is widely known, LeBron James. I think like all those people who people talk about when they say discipline and hard work, they talk about these people who are disciplined for so long, and that's why they got their success. But you think, after reading all these stories and everything, these are good things, these are the things that you want to put in your life, but you just can't get yourself to do it. You know what you need to do, you've even probably tried, you've got some results, but you still feel there is something that is stopping you from being that disciplined person. That's what we're going to address today, and this video is going to be in this format. I'm going to be talking to you, there's going to be this confrontational tone, and if you can't resist it, if you can't tolerate it, you can click away. There are much more entertaining and comforting videos on YouTube. This is not for you. Who are you? Why do all of this? Why even have a goal at all? These questions maybe sound a bit too existential, philosophical questions for you, but these kind of questions lay the foundations, fundamental to cultivate discipline, not just for the sake of it, but with purpose and meaning. Because without purpose or meaning, all the discipline that you build is just slaving away for things that someone else thinks is right for you. If you don't have the knowledge to be able to comprehend the consequences of your actions, the impact that you make, the role that you play in whatever group you are, some of your activities only tend to affect your family, some the whole world, some just you. And all of these things, for you to understand them, you need to have the knowledge and you need to have the consciousness to see how your mind works, and then only you can look at yourself and ask yourself, what would I find meaning in? What would my purpose lie in? What if I do, it will be better off than if someone else did? Because purpose can be defined in two ways. One, you do it because no one else will. That is a virtue that you give to the world, that okay, no one's gonna do it, so I gotta do it. And another way you can find purpose is, if you don't do it, someone else will do it, so it better be me. So there you're offering something better for the world. This is just a side note that I thought when I said purpose. I had just said that discipline without meaning is just slaving away for something that someone else think is right for you. And modern life has conditioned us so much into thinking that it's okay, because we often go to work, we go to study, and for exams and for the money and everything, why we do it, we try to build a discipline for it, we try to not miss classes, we try to be on the workplace at the right time, and these things require a bit of a discipline, and you're building this discipline for someone else's goals, for something that you're not particularly passionate of course there are some people that are passionate about it. I'm not talking to them, I'm talking to you who don't find it passionate enough to do those things. And like the life that we lived that way made us conditioned into thinking that okay, someone else will give me the advice on what I should do, then I will do it. You want someone else to tell you that. You want someone else to tell you what is right, because if you think for yourself once, if you just made the decision yourself and it ends up being wrong, you can't forgive yourself for it. And that also comes from a childhood thing, or the way you were parented and everything. I myself had the problem where I don't want to make the final decision for myself or for any matter in that regard. I find it really difficult because I remember as a child that I was criticized pretty much for making the wrong decisions at the wrong times, for making the decisions by myself and then failing. I didn't really have that much room for mistakes. Although when I grew up, I realized those mistakes and I was able to understand and be a parent for myself, so that I can tell myself that it's okay to make decisions and them turning out wrong. It's okay because we all make mistakes. That's what life is all about. But when you've grown up without understanding that, because your parents didn't really give you room for mistakes or time, because they wanted to rush things when you wanted to take it slow and take time. But it's people, okay, they did everything in their power to give us the lives that we have, but maybe they were not good parents, but we can try to be better parents ourselves. That's not the topic of this video. It is that we're afraid of making the decisions for ourselves, for our lives. And often we look at people who are having a harder life and we think to ourselves that okay, for them the motivation is very clear because they don't really have a choice nor the time to consider the options between not doing it and doing it. They just gotta do it, and that's why they're able to do it. Because of their depths of hardships, they just don't have the choice. They don't think two times, they just do it. And often they accomplish more. People who have it harder than you do better because their situation is much more intolerable than yours. Your comfort is actually stopping you from doing a lot of things. And sometimes we wish, don't we, like if only we could press some button and get into that mindset where we are just tunnel visioned on the thing that we actually want to do, but we just can't do it. I mean, there are people who can do it, but it is really difficult as far as I have tried for years. And there is definitely something that you can do to give yourself the meaning behind that discipline. This self-help culture, the self-improvement culture, these communities, these people, these online gurus, they have converted this whole thing, these good habits, the discipline, the consistency, everything into some stuff where it's just about five tricks and tips to be more productive. And you look at a video, let's say you're struggling with porn addiction and you watch these nofap videos and they give you tips and tricks to not relapse. But what they should have done you is give you the real philosophy, because it's not about not relapsing today, tomorrow. It's not about surviving each day. It's about not having to want to do it, because it often comes from a lack somewhere in your life, something that is missing from your life, and you haven't addressed that because you're busy trying not to relapse every single day. And sometimes what we do is we use these push to get things done. For example, I would just lock myself in a room to study that unit 2, which I find very difficult, of particle physics. I could do it maybe once or twice a year. How long would that work? How long can I restrict myself so that I can get things done? That wouldn't be what you want. That is not the ideal situation. That is not the equilibrium state that you're striving for. The default that we want to have usually would be one where we wouldn't have to think about it. We would actually want to do it. We would actually want to get it done. That is the ideal state that we would want to attain. Because the discipline that you're looking for, if you're trying to sustain it with willpower, it's always an uphill journey. But if you don't need willpower to maintain that discipline, because now you find it purposeful to do the things that you want to do. That's why I keep telling you that don't follow the wrong advice, don't look at the wrong people and try to do what they are doing, because sometimes people got their success with the things that they did. And I'm using success in a very vague, ambiguous way, because your goals could be very different, or you could be very specific about your goals. But what I want you to understand is that just because someone who got successful doing something doesn't mean that you have to follow that same exact thing, or you don't really have to follow everything that person says. If you build, again, this is all about reasoning, it's all about being able to understand and differentiate between the things that you need to follow and the things that you don't. For that, you need to be able to have a brain which is capable of thinking properly. For that, you need to have to reduce the brain fog, which means that you'll have to reduce the carb intake that you take. You need to watch your diet, stop eating too much junk food, exercise more regularly, and also you have to stop consuming all this content that is out there. You've watched constantly stimulating your brain with all that information that is out there. And what all of this does is it just restricts your capacity of the brain to be able to reason, to be able to understand, to be able to differentiate, to be able to dissect these things. And when you're unable to do that, you often try to, oh please, if only someone tell me exactly how to make money, then I would just do it, right? Really, bro? Come on, think about it. Even if someone gave you the step by step, you still wouldn't do it, because the reason you're not doing it is not because of the how, but because of the why. Because you just if you found the actual reason, and if you had the reason for it, you'd have the drive for it, and if you had the drive for it, you'll still figure out the how. I remember when I would hit these burnouts, and I would try to just get things done by the how, by just getting it done, and like how would I do it. But if I took the time to reset, for my brain to, for my mind to get that vibe back, get that drive back, get that motivation back, if I waited for it, I would have made better stuff. But as you focus on the how, you push yourself more and more and more, and the why just like has less emphasis when you try to focus on the how, and you don't recover fast from those burnouts. It may seem like I'm going all over the place, but what I want you to understand is that as long as you don't find the meaning and the purpose behind why you are cultivating the discipline, as long as you don't, you're going to find it harder and harder to sustain the discipline and the consistency that you give. Because without meaning, once again, you're slaving away for something that someone else thinks is right for you. And if you've had parents that stick around, you know how you don't really want to do what they tell you to do. And in the same way, this is the same thing. You're just continuing on that trend that someone else is telling you to do, and you try to become disciplined for it. Now you're just not looking at your parents, you're looking at someone else on YouTube because you think they have what you want. I've stuff written down here. I think I'll become an author actually. I think I'm going to write a book and I'm going to publish it, which you guys are going to learn a lot from. So once you find the thing that you find purposeful, the way you're going to emphasize, the way you're going to boost that meaning and purpose is by not indulging in other things that would take away that motivation, that emphasis. Basically, things that distract you. Like I said earlier, scrolling habits, social media, movies, and everything. I mean, I still watch movies here and there, and like I spend time with my friends. Sometimes we stay up late watching movies, sometimes. But the point of it is that everything you do, you pay a price for. And you gotta be able to say, I accept the consequences of my actions. This is something I learned, which is that whenever I'm indulging in something, I should tell myself before that I, by doing this, accept the consequences that this action will bring me. That builds up accountability. Once you are able to do the things that you want to do. You gotta eliminate the things that you shouldn't have in your life and prioritize other things that would help you attain this. That would be sleeping more. Give yourself a 9 hour sleeping window, because now you have less things to do, right? So prioritize your sleep. Read more books. Watch videos that like this one, which gives you insights without much of dopamine hacking and retention hacking and stuff. I hate that stuff. Honestly, I used to do that shit, but I couldn't care less anymore.